After conquering Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania on Mandela Day, the group of over 40 professionals, including our very own SABC journalist Gillian Pillay and our cameraman Thabo Madilola, tracked the highest peak on the continent, with more than half summiting. The 7th annual climb was in support of vulnerable girls.
Climbers took 8 hours to reach the first point. Severe altitude illness got the better of most. A lack of oxygen caused some to fall asleep at the first rest stop. Hallucinations, vomiting and fatigue ended the journey for others. And then, sunrise on what would have been Madiba's 100th birthday. From Gilman's Point, the next leg to Stella. We've been walking for close to 12 hours. In the distance, Uhuru Peak. But it will take us another 1.5 hours to get there. Climbers are beyond mental and physical fatigue. Most have succumbed to altitude illness and have been turned back. Only a handful have made it up to this point, and just a single step is beyond challenging. The reward, a thick blanket of snow. Among those who summited, SABC News' Thabo Madilola and myself. But we abandoned our double summit attempt following a grueling first climb to the peak.
Kept on saying it's close, it's 40 minutes. But it was taking forever, and the ice, walking on ice, was tough.
It was an amazing experience. Most importantly, this was for caring for girls for Trek4Mandela. That was
my heart told me never to give up. So here I am now, didn't give up.
Just watching people fall and being sick and trying to stop and help them, and there's so much you can do. There is so much you can do on a mountain.
For these climbers, it's literally been a long walk to freedom. But for the country and continent's girls, it's still an ongoing climb to be liberated from a struggle of a lack of sanitary pads. Gillian Pillay, SABC News, Uhuru Peak, Tanzania.
Wow, would you look at that? I want to be on that summit. For more on that experience, we're very pleased to be joined by our very own cameraman, Mr. Thabo Madilola, alongside the ladies, Miss Lynn Forbes and Miss Andisa Liva. Ladies, hi. Wow, let me first congratulate you. Thank you so much for joining us. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Good afternoon, Lynn.
Such a pleasure being here.
Good afternoon, Thabo. Congratulations, Thabo.
Thank you so much.
Let's start from the beginning, guys. I mean, take us through the experience of this journey. I mean, Andisa, let's start with you. I mean, for a woman, this must be very daunting. We've seen some people lose their lives at the peak of Mount Kilimanjaro. I mean, it must be a mentally and physically daunting task.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the preparation to it has kept us in good stead. I think it's important for us to have gone into this experience with really well grounded and just understanding what the risks and how to mitigate those risks when those situations do happen. So I think we've been well prepared mentally from that perspective for us walking in. But I mean, I will concur with your sentiment that it is really, really daunting.
Yeah, I want to hear from Lynn. Lynn, I mean, how do you prepare for this mentally and physically?
For me personally, it's been years and years of preparation. I've wanted to climb Kilimanjaro for a very long time. Sorry, my voice is gone. So as Andisa was saying, it is definitely, I think for me personally, it's more a mental preparation than it is physical. So we've trained for about 6 months physically. But I think if you're not mentally ready for this, you are in trouble.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Thabo, look, I mean, you're the brawn amongst the ladies here. How did you prepare for the expedition? I mean, and it's not your first time.
It is not, but if I were to be honest, I found this year to be very challenging than last year.
Why? Were the conditions different?
The conditions were very different. You can imagine, I was walking, and at the same time have to make sure that I film each and every step of all the way, even if it was not all the time. But you can imagine having to concentrate on getting those visuals and working at the same time. For me, it was more starting to be very challenging when we faced the glacier after Gilman's Point. You know, it was very tough. I had to dig deep in my mind, and 3 times I really wanted to walk back, and then Fortunately, the guy that I was with said, no, you can't come this far. Because it took us almost like 11 hours to reach the first point.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it was very slow because Mr. Velani wanted to give each and every climber a chance of, summiting. That is why they slowed down the pace than last year. But honestly, it was very difficult.
Look, guys, I mean, what goes through your mind? I mean, in when you're going through such challenges and you know that the only way you want to move is forward. Andis.
Gosh, I mean, I think what's been important is just to take it one step at a time, like Thabo said.
Yeah.
And not to rush the process, but also understand that you're in an environment that your body is not accustomed to.
Yeah.
And so in terms of the oxygen levels in that environment, and all the more reason why it became so important for us to take it easy, because the more you exerted yourself, the more difficult it became to get to the top, and certainly to the absolute peak, which was Uhuru. And so we had to really kind of slow things down. But I suppose also the most important thing was also to be really present, because it's really difficult for your mind to wander off.
I'm sure.
I mean, you're walking through the night, and you're having to stay awake, you're having to stay focused, you're having to fight illnesses as your body is, transforming.
Whole senses are like,
so you're completely
100.
overstimulated in every sense of the word. And through all of this, you've got to just kind of stay focused and keep one foot in front of the other. And you got to, I suppose, really dig deep and hope your faith kind of carries you through when your body fails you.
Andy, so you forgot this one thing, and I hope Lynn can cut into it. Lynn, the motivation, of course, we all know is to assist those girls that are struggling with sanitary towels. So I suppose the motivation is also that. What was your motivation?
Yeah, look, I think for me that was a secondary. For me personally, I had a very personal motivation that stems from my childhood, and I think most people know that story, and that's a long story, I'm not going into that. But for me, that was a real personal motivation. My whole family knew what it was about. Everybody that's ever met me, the first thing I would tell them is like, this is why I'm climbing Kili. So that was my personal. And then later on, towards the end of last year, Trek4Mandela came along. I've always followed the journey of the trekkers every year. And last year I decided to join it. So obviously then it became another reason, because I've always been looking for something of great worth to do it for. So, and this was perfect, because I've always wanted to make a difference in education and the girls. I mean, that's all education.
So you killed all birds with one stone,
I
not
did
even
it all,
two.
and it was my 50th birthday celebration.
What?
Yes.
50th birthday celebration. Congratulations. What are we doing incorrectly?
I know. So that keeps you going, So knowing what your why is.
You look beautiful for 50. Congratulations, Lynn. I want to
Thank
move over to find out from Thabo. Thabo, obviously this campaign has grown each year, bigger and better. I mean, what does it mean to you, this campaign particularly?
As for me, the real why was one young girl that we visited before we went to Kilimanjaro, Noktula Sibia. She's from a village called Hazeview, somewhere there. That young girl, she's performing so good at school, whereas she doesn't have anything. If you look at, if somebody has nothing,
the odds
usually the odds are against her at school, but she's performing so well. So every time when I really wanted to go back, I would always remind myself about her. And I was like, actually I'll be disappointing her, because I promised her that I will come back and give her more sanitary towels. That she shouldn't be worried about those kind of things, as much as we know that she doesn't have food and all those kind of things. So for me, that was my motivation.
Thank you so much, guys. Before I let you go, one question to all of you. I mean, how is the impact of this campaign? I mean, have you seen any new pledges of people that are wanting to be part of this campaign even next year to make it bigger and better? Andis?
So, I mean, I've been quite privileged. I've had the backing and support of a few people, but probably more prominently the Nelson Mandela Tourism Board in Port Elizabeth, which is the town that I'm from.
Okay.
And so it's been so heartwarming just to see them wanting to be part of my journey. They have come behind me financially.
You guys are creating awareness.
This is it. This is it. And I mean, for me, I think also the important thing is just sustainability. I didn't want to come onto this and to do it once off, and it's a bucket list, and I tick that off. For me, sustainability is really critically important. important. And I'm really privileged that, you know, they've kind of come on board, they've brought their stakeholders from the Nelson Mandela Bay, and together as a collective, we are going to be coming together with a plan for the next 5 years to see us providing sanitary towels to girls around Port Elizabeth. And that for me is the absolute win.
We know there's even a plant that they're building in the Eastern Cape
This
that
is
going to be producing those sanitary towels. Lynn, your final words?
Yeah, so for me, you know, I have made a commitment with the Trek4Mandela with Imbumba Foundation to stay committed to the cause at least until 2020 to help them reach their goal of reaching 2 million girls. That's my personal commitment, but I've also got my, you know, the AK Foundation. My son, you know, I've spoken to him last night when he picked me up from the airport. And as the AK Foundation, we really want to get involved with, you know, with the cause. But I think we just have to, as individuals, take part. I think we do not. I don't think we need to wait for big corporations to do this. If each person can just say, "Let me do something small," we could.
I mean, I was listening to Thabo's story there. I mean, so inspirational. And Thabo, speak to also the fact that you representing the SABC as well. And I mean, we've given so much awareness to this campaign.
Exactly. We are fortunate that we have the SABC is such a huge corporation, and then the platform is so broad. And then I'm hoping that this is not a once-off thing. You know, I'm hoping that SABC will take this forward, and you know what, we go all out. You know, I'm very happy that actually even before we left, SAFM came into board, and then one of the biggest company, bank in South Africa actually, by the time we left, have already pledged like 11,000 towards this. So I'm hoping and pleading for individuals, banks, government, everybody, let's hold hands and then go forward with this thing.
Absolutely, and also to note that Gugu did not die in vain.
This is it.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, wow, thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank
you guys are absolutely the legacy. Those are our Trek4Mandela troops here in studio. That is namely Miss Lynn Forbes, Andisa Leba, and of course Mr. Thabo, our very own cameraman who went on that expedition to try and assist young girls. Let's take a quick ad break. We're back with your back heads.